put your hand or your foot or any part of your body between the boat and the dock, you have unnecessary peer pressure, and we don't want to experience that. Hey y'all, it's Megan. If you are returning to my channel, welcome back, and if you're new, welcome aboard. So today's going to be kind of part 2 of what we talked about a few weeks ago. I was going into the ins and outs, the details of the workings of the Jungle Cruise, and I did the land positions last time, so if you're interested in that and you haven't seen it yet, I will link it down below for you so you can check that out. But today I'm going to talk about the boats. So on the surface of it, there's not all that much that you think you probably need to know about the boat position. If you are not familiar with the Jungle Cruise, that meaning that you are the skipper who is driving the boat and telling the jokes. That's what the Jungle Cruise is. It's a 10-minute boat ride of puns and bad jokes, and we love it dearly. So the jokes are the obvious part of the boat aspect. There is a 25-page long script thing of jokes that they hand you when you first start training, and they're like, start memorizing. It's got jokes, it's got facts, it's got everything broken apart into like, these are things that you can say when you're on the dock, these are things that you can say in this situation, these are things that you say in this area of the Jungle Cruise. So in each show scene, it's like, here's some stuff. And you are able to just kind of pick from that. Now, they do want you to stick to those scripts. I've mentioned before, if you have a non-OG boat, that's when you are kind of like deviating, doing your own thing, spitballing, improving, and that wasn't me. I've mentioned before why that wasn't me, because I got called out one time and I didn't want to do it again. So no more gray thing that killed Mufasa in the African veldt for me. And if you have not seen my spiel, I have a video that like pinned or whatever on my page, but I'll link it down there for you too if you want to hear my particular spiel. You have to first learn the jokes and the show scenes. That's the most important part of the boat position. And when you first start training at the Jungle Cruise, in my experience, again, it's been a while, so they may do things in a different order now, but the first thing that I learned to do when you get on the boat was not the jokes. We had the jokes and we were told to start memorizing them, but we didn't actually start speaking on the boat until a few days into our training. The first thing that you have to learn on the boat is how to drive the boat. That's kind of important. So the very, very first thing that we learned was how to dock, because that's one of the places where you are most likely to have some kind of incident, accident, injury can occur, because the boat is moving, it comes up against the dock, which is stationary, and if you put your hand or your foot or any part of your body between the boat and the dock, you have unnecessary peer pressure, and we don't want to experience that. So the safety aspect is always number one at Disney. So the first thing you need to learn is how to keep that boat still so that people can get onto it. So we would get on the boat with our trainers, and they would like, it's a dead boat, we're not loading anyone, and we would pull up to the load position and confuse all the guests as to why can't I get on that one, there's people on it. So we pull up to the front of the load position, and we had to wait there for the full like minute that I mentioned that dispatch is, because you don't want to mess up the timing of the boats. So we would sit there and you had to keep the boat still that entire time. Now your trainer is going to be sitting there and they're going to be watching to see how much the boat strays forward and backwards. You're in between the two docks, so you can't like tip over, but you do need to hold it still. So they would say dock at you over and over. If you started moving, they'd scream dock, and that meant get your boat to hold the freak still. So to do that, how they trained us, and I don't know if it's still there, I hope it's still there, there was a barrel that said gooseberry on the side. It's right next to that dispatch light, right before you leave the dock. They would say, line up your body with gooseberry, because that put the two doors at the appropriate spot so that they could be loaded. And you needed to stay with gooseberry so that you didn't start creeping this way while people are trying to get on the boat. Because you don't want to be moving, giving people a moving target, right? Like they want to be able to just get on the boat. So that's the first thing. You have to learn to dock. Then we would learn the show scenes and the timing. Thank you. I love that. Well, give me 10 minutes, okay? So in the interest of maintaining the magic, but also giving you information, the animals at the Jungle Cruise are real. They're not imaginary. You can see them, right? But they operate based on sensors. That happens when you drive by the previous show scene. So when you first leave the dock, you go into the Amazon. And if you look around, you may see some little panels down by the water where the boat will when it runs by, that lets the next show scene ahead know, hey, someone's coming. We need to be on our best behavior. So then that would make the drums and stuff in the Congo start working. You would hear the noises and the sounds and stuff that come from there. If something happens to the sensors and no one tells the show scenes, hey, you're getting ready to be on, like start doing your thing, it's silent. Nobody moves. It's like everyone's playing dead. Everyone's playing possum, and it's completely silent, and it's really freaky. So we don't like when the sensors mess up, because we need all of our critters to have their cues to start doing their thing. That's how the timing works, and that's why we don't want you to show stop. I've mentioned no show stopping before, but this is why it's important. If you have someone who wants to get all their jokes in and they stop their boat, they like pull the throttle back so that it does not keep going forward. The idea is that you push the throttle forward and you keep going at that speed the entire time you are on the river, unless something happens. So that's the goal. But if you are like, oh, I'm not gonna get all my jokes in, and you like stop your boat so that you're just kind of floating there so that you can get all your jokes out, now the people who are in the show scene ahead of you, you're not gonna hit the next sensor in time, which means they are gonna be going through, going by old Smiley, and he's gonna be like, do I snap now? No one's told me to snap. And that messes up the boat for the people in front of you. So that's why show stopping is very bad. You want to make sure that you're getting to the spots to give everything the cue that is one show scene ahead of you. So it's kind of confusing that you don't trip your own sensors really. You're kind of doing it for the next boat, unless something's changed. It could have, but when I was there, this is how it worked. So that is the next thing you learn, is the timing, because the boats are they don't all go the same speed. Some of them are a little slower than others. Some of them are really fast. The Irma was a speed demon. She was like lead foot, pedal to the metal. You had to kind of like coast with her because you would catch up to the people ahead of you. And that's really awkward. So you had to be paying attention to the boats that were in front of you and behind you to make sure that you were kind of keeping the correct pace. And after you've done a few cruises, you know about how long it should take you to get through a show scene, because you have your specific jokes that you use pretty much every time, and you know how long it takes for you to deliver them. A few years ago, I could have done my Jungle Cruise spiel in my sleep, and I did. In fact, sometimes I woke up because I had been dreaming of my Jungle Cruise spiel. And you get your timing down, so you learn how to gauge, do I need to like slow this boat down a little bit? Is this one of the boats that like you need to just like full throttle it and like lean to the front and hope to goodness that you keep moving? Bertha. You learn the boats, you learn the timing as you go. But those are all things that you have to take into consideration when you are in a boat position. So I mentioned Bertha. Bertha was one of the two ADA accessible, what we called the wheelchair boats. We have Bomokandi Bertha and Wamba Wanda. So those were the two boats that you could use fully ADA accessible. You could drive a ECV on, you could use a stroller that was acting as a wheelchair, you could use a motorized wheelchair, a manual wheelchair, you could use any kind of assistance on this boat. And that is because it had a panel in the middle. And I'm gonna try to describe this as easily as I can without like going into every detail, because I'm not trying to bore y'all to tears. But you would pull the boat to the center dock. There's 3 docks. There's unload, there's load, and then there's the center dock. This panel raises up with hydraulics, and the skipper who is controlling the boat, there's a switch on those 2 boats. They would flip it and the panel would raise up. The 2 skippers on the dock would then hop in. They would unlock it. There was like a lever underneath it. It would spin, lock into place facing the dock, and then there was a ramp that would unfold from that panel. So it comes up, it turns, it unfolds. Then people can drive their ECV, their wheelchair, whatever, straight on. And then we would say, do you like the teacups? Because you're getting ready to go for a spin. And we would rotate them around, not fast. It's just, skipper power. So it's not like we're like flinging them here. But, rotate them back forward. And then it's like, okay, and now you get to do Tower of Terror. And it drops slowly. It's hydraulics, it's controlled. And then we would drop them down. Also there's bumpers that we would put blocks on the wheels so that they wouldn't like roll while they're moving. So roll on, blocks, spin, lower down. And then they are in the center of the boat. They can see everything from where they are. They've got the best seat in the house, and the rest of their party would load on with them at that point. And then if there was enough room on the boat, then they would continue to load other guests would get on, go through the river, and they come back. All of the additional guests would hop off and they would pull back to that center dock, and all of the family members would hop off, and then they would raise them up, basically do it all in reverse. Raise them up, spin them, they would drive off, skippers would then rotate, drop it back down. If there was another person to load, they'd obviously load them at that point, and then proceed. But it was really great because we were able to accommodate everyone. The Jungle Cruise, everyone can ride. Babies, like little newborn, like just were birthed in the queue as far as I could tell. Teeny tiny babies can ride on the Jungle Cruise. And everyone who, whether you are comfortable transferring or not, everyone can come on the Jungle Cruise. So that was something that I really loved about my attraction, was that everyone could enjoy it as long as you like puns. I mean, if you don't like puns, then like, I'm sorry. But if you were into what the Jungle Cruise was, then you were able to enjoy it. That is kind of how the boat situation works. I don't think I'm leaving anything. Oh, rescue boats. I didn't mention rescue boats. Okay. So I've told you before that you have to have a rescue boat, because if you are somewhere on the river, let's say you are in the Indian elephant bathing pool on Bertha, and it's loaded and it just dies and your radio is also dead and you can't get out, that'd be a weird thing to have happen. Surely that wouldn't happen to anyone. But if it did, you would need someone to come get you. Now, the best way for someone to come get you is going to be someone who has an empty boat, because you don't want anyone who's behind you on the river to have to like push you through the river, right? That's the only way that you can get out. If your boat is dead, you have to be towed. And if you are not the last boat on the river, then there's people behind you. So then that means that you have to have someone come from the dock and go backwards. So then you will have to have someone who is there and capable of doing that in case something happens, which is why you never leave the dock without another boat showing up behind you. Because if, Lord forbid, may the jungle gods never allow it to happen, if you leave the dock and you're in the Congo or whatever, and the boat that was directly behind you suddenly dies in the Indian elephant bathing pool, everyone is stuck on the river. There is no one to come help them. They would have to go and like find another boat if there was one available, get it warmed up, get it fueled, get it on the river, and that would take so much time. So in the interest of avoiding that absolute cluster, you have to make sure that at all times before you enter the jungle, there is at least one boat that would be capable of backing up and getting someone in case of an emergency. That's why if you're sitting at the dock for a long time at night, they're like, oh, we're just waiting for that rescue boat. Gotta wait for our rescue boat. That's why, because in the event that something horrible happens, there has to be someone on the dock that can go back and get somebody. So that's that. And if you are curious about like the actual towing in process, I do go into detail about that in the video where I was on Bertha and it died. So there's more information there if you're curious about that actual process, because I have talked about it before and this video is already like 15 or 20 minutes long. So that is it. I think I've gotten everything. If not, I can do another video. If you have questions about any of this that I just like ran through, this is a full week's worth of boat training that I just crammed into 20 minutes of video. So if there's questions, let me know. I am not a teacher, clearly, for very obvious reasons. I'm not great at explaining things, I don't feel like. So if anything there was confusing, let me know and I'll try to explain it a little bit better. But that is the gist of the boat position and how it works, the ins and outs running of the Jungle Cruise. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you have any other questions about Jungle or Disney or life, the universe, and everything, let me know down below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, y'all. Are you ready to catch now? Do you want this? Can you go down? Good job. Okay. Good catch. Alrighty.